This guy has ascended from the halls of Timko Barton to the halls of the greatest music venues across the world. He had the bravery to walk away from a promising career and benefits at Pottery Barn to pursue music because this Jinx Trojan refused to waste any of his talent. And you know what they say about kids from Oklahoma, man, they don't waste it. Early on, he made MySpace his space, and today he's been accused of making TikToks like a dad, which makes sense because he's the father of this generation's biggest hits, writing for all of the stars on the planet, including Bono, Sirs Paul and Elton, Queen Bee, and even Travis Kelce's girlfriend. When he's not playing pickup basketball in cargo shorts, he's picking up Grammys. In fact, he has 90 billion streams, 3 Grammys, 2 sons, and 1 ORU A-League intramural soccer championship ring that he wears everywhere he goes. If you think he looks like an angel, that's because you can see his halo. If you're feeling concerned, he ain't worried about it. And if you're regretful, bad news, it's too late to apologize. And if you're quantifying celebrities, I'm counting 1 star right now. He's called himself the tortoise, not the hare, but I call him the tortoise with great hair. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Aro Podcast, Mr. Ryan Tedder.
Mm-hmm. Quite the intro.
We think.
Yeah, love it. Love it, man. This is the halls of Timko Barton.
I got to tell you.
I was there last week.
Were you really?
In the halls of Timko Barton. I popped into the campus for like 30 minutes just to nose around and crept into the piano rooms. And it's identical. It's good to see that I don't think they've done anything to it.
They haven't changed a bit. I got to admit, I got a little bit of help from our friends Dave and Adam on some of those factoids there. So do you still play? Adam wants to know, do you still play pickup basketball in cargo shorts?
Man, I don't. I sadly have not owned cargo shorts. My wife made me retire those around, I want to say 2008, 07, 08.
There you go. Now I get it. Well, no one balled like you like that. You're a great athlete. People know you musically, but you are a great athlete, and thus the A-League intramural championship in soccer. So just quick to start off, Ryan, when you were playing at Jason Shepard's home in Sun Meadow, did you think you would ever make it to the Aro Podcast? Did you think?
I don't know how you pulled that one. That's insane. That's like beyond Wikipedia. Jason
That's
Shepard.
Pretty good. Oh, of course. That's well beyond Wikipedia. I went to the dark web for that. No, that was dark web knowledge.
Man. Yeah, that's some North Korea info. I ruminated on the possibilities, and I definitely, let's just say that I've been quietly manifesting since 87.
Well, you had dreams. No, I appreciate that. Quietly manifesting. I love it. So I want to talk thank you for joining us. I want to talk about your story. We have a lot of parents, a lot of people with high aspirations who listen. And so as I thought through your story, I want to think through the fact that you had a goal, the adversity you've overcome, which is a bunch, and what you do with your success. So to start in the early years, you were a great musician very early on. Will you talk a little bit about your relationship with music at a very, very young age?
So I grew up around music. My dad was a musician and a gospel songwriter back in the 70s, and wrote a lot of songs that were in that world known and popular in the, I'd say, call it mid to late 70s. So I grew up, my earliest memories having a grand piano in the house. And I was, like a lot of kids, forced to take piano lessons from an early age. Starting at age, I think 3 is when I started taking piano. And so it was just always a part of my daily repertoire. It was like, soccer. I played all the sports, and like every other kid in Oklahoma, there's not much to do. So you're gonna play all the sports. And a lot of the extracurricular activities were off the menu for me. So like partying and, drinking and all that other stuff was just not on the menu because of how we were raised. And so I have no siblings. So I had unlimited time,
right, coupled
with, an innate love of music. And honest to God, I was just telling my kid last night, I'm so glad I grew up without social media, because I don't think I'd be here. I mean, maybe I would have been here faster. That's to play devil's advocate, because my kids can already produce tracks and make beats and do crazy stuff that I couldn't do. But I just think the flip side of that coin is the distraction, right?
Yeah.
Would I have actually developed into who I was? I was flat out bored. So I was telling him, I was like, when I'd get home, I had three things to do, right? TV or watch one of the 20 movies we had again.
Right.
And TV, which is usually hijacked by my parents. So that was off menu. Like that's number one. Number two, read a book. I loved reading, which led to songwriting. So I would read a ton. And then number three was the piano in the living room, figure out another song. And so I would go through different phases of obsession with piano. And I really didn't get obsessed though till the lessons stopped and like we fired our piano teacher. I was just sick of having these people learn this, do that. And the moment we fired the last guy, I sat down by myself and started just picking out melodies and things that I wanted to hear. And then got a guitar, got a drum kit when I was 13, played drums for hours every day. And then got a guitar when I was 16, 17, taught myself guitar. And then bass in college. And then, to summarize it quick, because I know we don't have much time, I basically, I got a degree, I put in air quotes, in advertising and marketing. But in all reality, when I switched majors my junior year, I was like, what will be the most cakewalk degree that I can get A's, like get good grades in,
right.
So I have time to, I didn't broadcast this, but like, so I have time to sneak into the piano rooms in Timco Barton. You have to be a piano major to use those rooms. I was never a piano major. I spent more time in there than most piano majors. But I figure, forgiveness is easier than permission, especially at the collegiate level. So I just would tape paper over the window so the teacher couldn't look in and see that I wasn't one of her students. And I would play, I probably did 2 to 3 hours a day. I'd say, I feel like 4 or 5 days a week for the majority of the 4 years that we were at college. So I put in, just about as much time in the piano rooms writing as I did sitting in class. And that was, I loved it. So that's it. That's kind of what led me to here. And I put in 10,000 hours. By the time I graduated college, I easily clocked 10,000, auditioned for a show on MTV and made it. And that was that's it.
I want to talk about the MTV show because I'll tell a quick story on that. But back to your parents, this sounded like this was very led by you. I think what you see a lot of parents now, they're almost trying to impose a bunch on their kids and force them into something versus this is something you had. So what did your parents do along the way to help? And maybe for parents listening, when you see something, a particular interest in your kid, what can they do to foster that? What did your parents do that helped kind of breed that in you, if at all?
It's funny. That's a funny question because I'm not going to throw them under the bus. It
feels like you're about to throw them under the bus.
It feels like I'm about to throw them under the bus. Aside from the piano and the prerequisite piano lessons, I'd say that's what they did for me. Is they forced me to learn piano half the time against my will. Sometimes I liked it, sometimes I didn't. The last thing you want to hear your kids say, well, it's funny. I would be stoked to hear my kids say this, but what is, especially in Oklahoma, you have to understand context, right?
Yeah.
I didn't grow up in Los Angeles. My head was in LA from the time I was 10, but like I didn't grow up here.
Yeah.
And so with the way that I was wired and, if I have any skill set outside of music, it's like reading, retaining data, information, statistics, and facts and figures and those kinds of things, and then arguing them. So my mom was like, he's going to be an attorney. He's going to be an attorney. This kid can read a book and then whip out, some type of random fact and win a case. She was already kind of in her mind mapping it out. I had no interest in that. I really wanted to go into acting or music, and acting, funny enough, was my passion, what I thought I was going to do before music. And then I realized one day that actors for the most part don't write their own scripts and they're replaceable. And once I realized, I forget what movie it was, but it was a movie that was remade. And I was in love with the movie that had come out. And I was like, this movie's incredible. And then my dad was like, yeah, I remember the original one. And I was like, what? And I remember that light bulb went off and I went, wait a minute. So I'm obsessed with this movie and this guy didn't exist, right? Yeah. Biggest actor in 1965 doesn't exist now, right? Doesn't exist. The whole cast doesn't exist. It's like Ocean's 11's a great example, right? Oh, Ocean's 11's incredible, Brad Pitt and blah, blah, blah. No, it's not. It's the Rat Pack. Like it's a remake. So that really stymied my desire to pursue acting. I was like, no, I want to write my own script. My parents didn't discourage me, right?
Yeah.
My dad was for sure more into the idea because he was a songwriter at some point. And I would say they didn't squash it. So the best thing that they did was, and I was like, hey, you're the one who forced me to play piano. Like, don't get sideways on me. This was inevitable. It could have happened. If you remove the Tulsa component,
Yep.
Midwest, and that's like for just parents in general, I think the biggest mistake parents can make is they look around their circle in Minneapolis or, Ogden, Utah, or Oregon or Maine, and they go, no, that's not what people here do. Like that's the odds are so. I don't want you. Parents just don't want their kids to fail.
Yeah.
Right. So the thing that we say to our kids all the time, I said it last night. I said, I don't care how much money you guys ever make or what you do. The only thing I won't tolerate is you not being entirely sold out passionate about the thing that you pick. And if that takes 10, going through 10 doors, that's fine. I'll be there and I'll look at it all, see it all, hear it all, whatever. But the only thing I care about is that you're passionate about what you do. And I don't give a rat's ass how much money you make doing it. Because if you're passionate and you're get great at something, money will find you always, flat out. And that's like trash collecting, man. You end up running waste management. I don't care. Like I'm so agnostic about or snobby about what you pick to do. I really don't care. Yeah.
Well, I think again that's back to the end. Again, I struggle with this with my two kids. Is this thing? It's almost imposing my stuff on them versus what do you love? And that's a hard thing to get to. One, you have to be a good listener to your kids to find out what they love, and then support them in that. I love that. So for you, when you made that transition, and you said, okay, I'm going to go after music. What did you set out? This may be an odd question. What did you set out to do? What at that moment you said, I'm going to go pursue music. This is what my goals are. This is what the greatest life looks like for me in music.
There's a gap between, and I feel like this is always the case for the most part. I'm a big believer in manifest destiny and manifesting things. And I don't ascribe necessarily a spiritual. I think can be a spiritual aspect to it, but I don't necessarily ascribe that to it. There's a delta between what I will broadcast about what I want to do and what in my mind is like, but this would be cool too. One thing that I've lived my life by, like religiously, is very old adage or story, but the whole boy who cried wolf thing.
Yeah.
There was some point when I was a kid that I remember my mom chastising me about something. I was like, I forget what it was. I was probably 8 or 9, and I was like in some loop of talking about a certain thing, and I don't even remember the context that well, but I remember her saying, be careful, you don't want to be the boy who cried wolf. And I was like, what is that? And she explained that to me. It's like the person who talks about something all the time, makes claims, this happened, or I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And then it's all sizzle without the steak, as my stepdad would say. All sizzle, no steak. And it's funny the things that trigger you as a kid, but that really triggered me. And I was like, well, I am not going to be that kid. Like I was like, ooh, like screw that person. I don't want to be that person. Like I hate that characteristic. As an adult, I hate that characteristic. One of my handful of triggers, personality triggers, is somebody who talks a great game and then just doesn't follow it. So I determined from a young age, whatever I say, if I start talking about something, and anyone that ever was a roommate of mine or a friend of mine, like can say this to the day since the day they met me. If you hear him talking about something, it's not if, it's when.
Yeah.
And so once I started saying I'm going into music, which was probably sophomore, junior years, when I really started to be a little more open about it. Once that happened, I knew it was going to happen. But I would say, because the safe thing to say is, I want to be a successful songwriter. That's a great, and by the way, great job. If you can get it, you're low key. You don't get stopped in Starbucks and noticed in, airports and hotels. And you can make really good money if you're great at it. And I also knew that would take me to Los Angeles by way of Nashville. I was 2 years in Nashville and New York, and then came to LA. So I would say that, for me, it was speaking it. That's what I would speak. Yeah. I would say I want to be a songwriter. Little did everyone know. Little did anyone but the girls I was dating know, because those are the only ones I would show. That I was quietly, I could sing my ass off. So I maintained that for a while. And I was happy to do just the songwriter thing and be a songwriter, producer, whatever. And by the way, I'd still be happy if that's the only thing that worked out. But when I was in Nashville and I saw that MTV audition thing, I was like, this is for a reason. I was working at Planet Hollywood, and they're like, no employees are allowed to work. I was training. I was on my day 3. No, and I saw the sign when I left. I go, what's that? I was like, the talent search, MTV, TRL. And the guy goes, oh, yeah, we're hosting it Sunday. We're hosting it 4 days, but like, you're not allowed. No one that works here is allowed to be to audition. And I looked at him, I go, why? And he goes, it's something about, it's just, it's complicated, but like, it's off limits. I go, dude, I'm sorry, I quit.
Here's
and this is the manager. Yeah. He goes, what? I literally took the apron off and I go, I quit. And he was like, what are you talking about? And he was so pissed, man. I didn't even come back to pick up my check. I was just like, I'm out. And then I entered on Sunday. I won. Ended up on TRL 2 weeks later. And that's when my parents found out. My mom and dad did not know. My stepsister did not know.
Wow.
I didn't tell anyone that I was going to New York to be on TRL. I didn't tell my roommates. I didn't know if I was going to go back to college. Again, boy who cried wolf. I was not going to, I was so committed to that lifestyle of do what you say you're going to do or shut up.
Yep.
And so I take it religiously. So for me, when I ended up on TV, my phone blew up later. My mom, like everyone going, what? You're in New York? Like they didn't even know I went to New York. I didn't tell anyone. It was just me. I can't even.
That's amazing.
I think that's it. I really don't even know who else I told. I just hopped on a plane, went to New York, did the thing.
And
then won.
So I remember my mom, I was at my friend's house. My mom called my friend's house. This was before cell phones. And she said, Ryan Tedder's on MTV right now. You have to turn it over there right now. And I turned over. And by the way, I know you disavow the song. I think that song's hot fire. I still love the look. I honestly, I watched that old clip from this morning. I watched 2000, The Look. Lance Bass was there, and Dave Holmes and Pink and Brian McKnight. I mean, what a great, and you crushed it. And then I remember watching So You Think You Can Dance. And then when someone is dancing and then Apologize comes on. And that was when it first hit the scene. But in between there, after you won the TRL contest, you picked up by Columbia Records, and then you got dropped. And I'm curious about this moment of adversity, because here you are manifesting all of these great things. Here you are with a goal. You have certainty of where you're going, but then you're at the top of the world. And then all of a sudden your legs get cut out from under you. So I want to hear about that moment of how you overcame that adversity, knowing where your sights were set, and then how you've translated that into other situations where you've faced disappointment and where you're climbing up a hill and you have to overcome the disappointment, discouragement, adversity, all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, quite simply put, I've never believed, another quote that I've been saying, not realizing that I didn't make it up, because I saw Schwarzenegger say it the other day on Instagram. But since I was in high school, I've said, I don't believe in plan Bs. It's plan A. And if plan A blows up in my face, I will pivot in real time. But I'm not going to sit around talking about plan B. Yeah. I'm not a Navy SEAL needing to figure out an alternate extraction point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a time and a place to have plan A, B, and C, and I understand all that.
Yeah.
But as far as passion, it's like I knew I wanted to go into music, so there was no plan B. So, and any iteration of doing music professionally, I would have been happy with. Yeah. That's the truth. There was a point in 2006. This is after we got dropped. I just got married, and I went from having a record deal and thinking things are going to blow up to getting dropped. But they also dropped Katy Perry, Jonas Brothers, all in the same month. Columbia did.
Great idea.
And so great idea. It was a stellar year. I played Coachella and found out I got dropped the next week. So, and I was finally making good money though, doing original songs for movies and TV. And I was yes, I was Mr. Yes. Say yes until you can afford to say no. And, I was taking in all the work that I could and all of a sudden making like a doctor's income in 2006 and 7. And I say that to say that like, as a songwriter, that's like a big W. That's a huge win. If you can like do that at age I was in my mid 20s, and married and I was comfortable for the first time. I was like, ooh, we could probably afford a house. Like we could probably get a condo at the least. And, ruminating on all those things. But at the same time, concurrently, when I got dropped, I thought, okay, I have the song Apologize and I have the song Stop and Stare. And I think they're hits. Yep. I could be wrong. But there was this new thing that had come out that had just exploded called MySpace. And it was, the precursor to obviously Facebook, even though that was concurrently, but it blew up faster than it was TikTok. It's TikTok, right? Of 2006, 7, MySpace was TikTok. And so I said, on the back of MySpace, music was a big part of MySpace. There was 3 charts on the back. I just click MySpace Music, click it, and it would say unsigned, independent, or major label signed artist. We were on the major label category, buried at the bottom. And I said to the band, I'm going to take these 2 songs, which we technically didn't own. Columbia still owned. I'm going to put them on us on the unsigned category. This is the MySpace. Social media is the great democratizer of ideas, and the world, ultimately the world, let the world decide if this music is great or not. And if the world decides that these songs aren't great, I'm okay with that resignation. Otherwise, screw them. So we put Apologize and Stop Stare on there. Within 3 months, we were the #1 unsigned artist in the world. Wow. And we just flew up the charts. I remember Colby Calais, Bubbly, to drop a pin in the time. She was #1, Colby Calais, Bubbly, who I knew really well. She was a 16-year-old girl hanging around the studio up in Thousand Oaks when we were recording our demos. She was in the room all the time, just hanging out with us. She was friends with the engineer and the producer. And so she watched us record Apologize, Stop and Say, like all those songs. So it was kind of funny. She's #1. And I texted her and I was like, hey, you technically just got signed. You're assigned. I was like, Colby, I remember sitting there. I was like, I love you. I'm so happy for you, but you've been sitting at #1 for 5 months in the unsigned category, and you've been signed for the last 4 months.
And so you asked her to get
We're
off of there?
#2. I asked her, I was like, is there any chance you could just switch to signed so we could have a shot and ring the bell?
Amazing.
She switches over, and we go #1, and then every label called, including the label that dropped us. And at that point, I still didn't think, I'm afraid to speak absurd manifestations. I might, even though I might think them. So I remember telling my wife, it's not going to work. Don't get hyped. Like, I'm not hyped. She's like, why aren't you more excited about getting a new record deal with Interscope? I was like, too much disappointment. And like I was emotionally detached from that because, failure is thick skin, and the thicker your skin, the less you feel pain. So that was the beginning to embrace failure and loving failure and just flipping it on its loving failure and flipping it on its head, because failure to me is that's like a version of that's jet fuel for me. That's absolute jet fuel. It just depends on how you're wired. But like the tuck tail and go home and sulk and complain and oh my God, that's just, I'm not wired that way. So if I fail, I go, man, it's like how much better it's going to feel when I win and these people see it. Like, it's like you watch that Jordan documentary, he would create false scenarios in his mind. Somebody made a joke about my mom on the court last night, and he would like tell himself that to get him to ramp up the next day mentally. So I years ago learned to take those failures, someone telling me, you're not a star, you'll never be a successful lead singer. I still remember those words and who said them. Like good songwriter, but like will never sell as an artist and all these things. And people passing on Bleeding Love and telling me to my face, it's not a hit. Bleeding Love is not a hit. Counting Stars is not a hit. And so I take those things and it's just like adding, like I said, it's like adding high octane jet fuel to for me personally. And I go, cool. Like let's talk in a year. Love that. I can't wait to see you. at some random coffee shop, when this song is a smash, and I just smile. I'm not going to say I told you so.
Yeah.
I'm just going to smile.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'll remember.
That's it. Exactly.
I always you hear Tom Brady later in his career, when he was in his prime, he would say to the guys around, hey, nobody's giving us a chance. Nobody believes in us. And I remember hearing that and saying, dude, what are you talking about? Everybody's giving you a chance. But to your point, you have to create those even when you're on top to keep that, keep that hunger, kind of that walk on mentality.
You have to create you have to live in an underdog bubble, and keep that bubble intact. And that's that thing will keep you hungry and keep you pushing. The second you are smelling your own roses and believe that you've arrived, it does something funny to your brain. And it just it's you're no longer, we're still all animals in a way, right? And the second a wildebeest gets comfortable, out in the plains is the second something's coming for it. So that's just kind of the way I think of it.
Okay, I want to, you're being very generous with your time. I wanted to ask a quick question. You've hit success. I have 4 more questions. The first one is, when you hit success, did it taste like you thought it was going to taste? When that first pinch me moment happened, did it taste like you always dreamed it would, or was it still, I still got to stay hungry? Like, did you give yourself a moment to enjoy and savor that time whenever you hit?
Yeah, I got I got the drunkest I've ever been at an Irish bar in Chicago with my band, and I happened to unfortunately run into a group of 3 or 4 Irishmen and a girl from Dublin in Chicago who knew who we were. We had just gone gold or platinum with our first album, and I had apologized. It was the #1 song in the world. We broke every streaming airplay record. I knew at that point I was going to have more money than I knew what to do with, and I just remember that day. So then I'll zoom out specifically. Oh, we knew. Yeah, we definitely smelled the roses that day. The whole band. We had the funniest, most insane night ever in Chicago till 4 a.m. celebrating. Do not go to, getting drunk is, I absolutely avoid it at all costs at these days, especially. But if you ever do have drinks, do not have them with an Irishman. Do not, because they straight up, I'll never forget, they go, drinks on us, but you have to go toe to toe with us. And I said, oh man, I can handle it. Nope. I was, no. It was horrible. So I was probably 28. That ruined the next couple of days. But zooming out, I would say for probably about a 6-month period, I was extremely elated and grateful. At the same time, I was like, cool, now I just got to do it again. Yeah. Like, it was never about the money. Once I made I was doing well enough prior to apologizing those songs that I remember thinking, again, we can buy the house, we can be comfortable, we can have a good life now, we can have kids, I can get actually own a car. Yeah. The money was ancillary. It was really, this is what I want to do for a living, but I love it so much, I want to keep doing it. So I did stop and smell the roses. But then I got right back on the horse. I think I probably took off, as I recall, we were on tour. I took off like one or two, maybe 1 month on tour. And for the first time in 4 or 5 years, just played video games. That was my celebration. Awesome. We were on the tour bus. We had an Xbox. I played Halo and Bond and all. I literally played video games because I love, that's like, if I'm really relaxing, I'm like playing, Call of Duty or Assassin's Creed. And I played games for a month, and I didn't do a song for 1 month because I'd been writing for 7-8 years nonstop. And that was my way of celebrating. I'm not writing this month, I'm playing games. And so that's it. But then I went on to the next challenge and then kept it moving.
That's amazing. Quick question. Obviously this is, the Aro Podcast is all about kind of inspiring people, giving them the tools to live out an intentional life. So we don't do many commercials at all for ourselves, but you're an investor in Aro. You were early on board with us, and I just would love to hear from you. What is it about? What was it about the concept of Aro that drew you into the idea, the concept, the business, and led you to a point of putting a little bit of money in?
The concept to me was Aro was the physical manifestation of what we were already doing and practicing at our home. So, our kids have very capped, limited screen time. when I get home, if my kids are talking to me, I'm not on the phone. Like it's like when I walk into meetings, if I'm at home, if I'm at a meal, phone usually is either in the pocket or it's like face down. Right? It's that dopamine trigger when it lights up. Ooh, who is it? Who is it this time? Right? So, our kids have limited screen time. Our kids, I have a 13-year-old, 9-year-old, and he probably thanks me or his mom once a month, or if not once a week, for not letting him be on TikTok or Instagram or any social media. And he's 13. He's the only friend he has that does not have an account. Our 9-year-old, obviously.
Yeah.
We let him monkey around with YouTube Shorts, but even that is like, you got 20 minutes in a day. So we were already, unfortunately for my line, as I told you before we did the podcast, I said I might be your worst person to have on, because my line of work, I have to be accessible in real time most of the time. It's not a 8-hour a day, 40-hour a week job. I have people hitting me. I have songwriters in London. I'll have writers that are traveling around the world or in Australia, and artists that are, Tate McRae, right? Yeah. Being in Berlin and going, oh crap, I don't have the TV edit of Greedy or X's, and then that could land in my text thread, and then like Ryan, I know for sure Ryan has it, and it's 9:30 p.m. I'm getting ready for bed. So I still have to be, that's part of like, unfortunately in this line of work, winning. And they don't respect weekends, because by the way, when I'm on tour, dude, I don't know what day it is. I have no clue what day it is. Like, I get texts from Lil Nas X, like fairly consistently. If I get a text from it, it's between 6 and 7:30 a.m. on a Sunday, because he just has weird hours. He has weird hours, man. Like, text me at 7 a.m. WID, what are you doing? Are you around today? Miley Cyrus, same deal. Like, what are you doing today? I'm like, it's Sunday.
Right.
Oh, cool. Can you go to the studio today? Like, so remove me from the situation. I'm not wishing that on my kids or my wife. So I've gotten, look, there's always room for improvement, but I've gotten really good at going, like, moving. It's just like a reaction. I walk into a place, I'm going to a dinner tonight with friends. Like, I know that unless I'm physically in the bathroom, we all do the same thing in the bathroom. It's like standing at the urinal, and you're like, oh, what's going on? Although until you drop one in the urinal, which I've done, no bueno. But like, I'm, and even to prove a point, I'll like sometimes, leave it face down. And even if I'm going to get water, go to the bathroom, I'm not bringing it with me. So I practice that in my own life as much as I can. We're way more regimented with our kids and our family, and we want people to know that when they're with us, and they're not partially with us, like that they're actually with us. And in this day and age, that is almost impossible. And when you have Apple Watches now too, I love Apple Watches. So I wear them when it's useful, and but I can't do it at home because if I just noticed after months and months, I'd be like, you can't. It's like, check it, it's going off, doing a thing, and it's like, then you're sitting around going, wait, do I have arrhythmia? Do I have hypertension? Is my blood oxygen level all right? And it's like all this stuff. It's just too much. So everything is just too much. We got to tamp it down. So I think what you guys have built it was just reflective of what we were already doing and attempting to do at home. And I can say that it's made a massive difference with our kids. The amount of reports we get from teachers, principals, parents of other students, the commentary we get is so consistent and so frequent about how mature, present, not triggered, not reactive our kids are. And I see kids that come over and friends, and it like literally breaks my heart, who are so addicted to social media, the dopamine kicks, so addicted that they can't even hang out. Like it's like You physically have to remove it from their hands to go be a kid, go outside. Here's a pool. Here's a Nerf gun, like whatever, like just go exist.
Yeah.
Don't like I saw this wonderful meme the other day I posted. It's like, obviously it was sarcastic, but it was Billie Eilish's brother Phineas, who's a friend of mine, like posted this thing, and I repost a lot of his stuff because we have the same sense of humor. He was like, everyone make sure to get in as much screen time as possible right now, as much as you can, because when you're dead, you can't be on screen anymore, and you'll wish you had spent more time
so true.
while you were alive.
It's so true. We're going to miss it.
I'm like, I'm butchering it, but you're going to miss it. Get as much screen time as you can now, because when you're dead, there's no more screen time. And it was like, oh my God, that is the funniest. It's so accurate.
So amazing.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, look, that's our full circle moment from the beginning of the episode of you saying you were able to be a kid. You were able to find that passion inside of you. You were able to kind of figure those things out for yourself because you were bored, because you didn't have those distractions. Because, I mean, honestly, piano can't really compare to the dopamine hits you get with all that stuff that's being fed to you on TikTok, because those are just so darn interesting and compelling. No. So that's that full circle. I
would say that if you want the 2024 way of reinforcing positive behavior and possibly not steering, but like helping guide or encourage what your kids want to do, is we're all animals, and Pavlov's dog, that whole syndrome, that whole methodology, it's backed by reality. Reinforce positive behavior, don't reinforce negative behavior. So for us, it's like we cap screen time like crazy. A lot of parents just now they use it so their kids can check out and they don't bother them, which is sad. But like we have hardcore screen time on locked on our kids' devices, right? Our kid didn't get a phone till he was 13. Even that, he was the youngest. Yeah.
For sure. The
oldest friend he had without a phone. We monitor everything that they see and do. We have so many, the amount of apps they can't touch is ridiculous. And what I do is, like, if our oldest or youngest is fascinated by something or curious or passionate about something, history, architecture, music, then I will throw money at that. Yeah. Right? Like you're interested in music? Cool. I'm downloading Logic for you and Ableton, and you can access YouTube for tutorials. We will unlock it for this unlimited. Like you can dive into this rabbit hole as deep as you want to go, and I will reinforce it. I will help buy you the apps, the necessary equipment, the gear. So when our kids are fascinated by something and it's a healthy obsession, we will, like, all of a sudden that water hose that you're like got your hand on, you're like keeping it at a trickle with phone time, screen time, social media, all that. We'll go like that, right? And we'll pour the water on that. Right. And to me, that's, like, I think the best way, and sports is obviously a good one. Athletic things is a great one. Our kids got into karate. Yeah. We got them a karate teacher. They do it 4 days a week now for 2 years. Wow. And our, like, our 13-year-old is in infinitely better. I was in good shape. He's in the best 13-year-old shape I think you could be in. And it's just because we're trying to, like, the kids might want to be interested in 10 different things in a month. 9 of them are a waste of time. One of them, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, let's pour some water on that, and reinforce that a little bit. And then it's like reward, again, Pavlov's dog. It's like, okay, you also kind of want more screen time and dopamine. Well, here's some YouTube videos and tutorials, and here's some, documentaries and things that we will let you watch, because the internet is wildly powerful and super useful as long as it's used correctly. Yeah. As long as it's used correctly. Screens are useful if they're used correctly. Like anything, there's a good way to do it and a bad way to do it. But that's how we reinforce. I love it. Positive. I love it.
That's so strong. I appreciate you leading the way, man. Thank you for all of the, it's going to sound a little bit cheesy, but I mean it. Thanks for all the, not just your presence, but the beauty you bring into the world through your music, the music you allow other people to sing, that you produce, that you write. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for using your God-given abilities to make the world better and more beautiful. Appreciate you, brother.
Same to you, man. And I appreciate you, and this has been fun, Koinonia.
Yeah, man. Been a great time. Thank you, brother.